Hi YouTubers, I'd like to talk today about the 1951 Refugee Convention. In my opinion, it's not fit for purpose and I believe it should be scrapped. The reason I'm saying it's not fit for purpose is it was just after the Second World War when this convention was signed up, and basically you had World War II just finished and you had displaced people all over the place. So the reason for the convention was that that to be able to look after people that are displaced. But as I said at the very start of the video, I don't think it's fit for purpose in 2022, and I'll give you a few reasons why. One is, in the olden days before 1951, when you had a war like the Boer War, the Crimean War, World War One, World War Two, you had a set start date. You can look it up in the history book, and you'll also see in the history book the time and the day it finished. A good example of this would be, say, World War One. We all know it started in 1914, and we know it ended in 1918, and we even know that it was ended on the 11th month, the 11th day, the 11th hour, the 11th minute. That was it. The war was over. Now, if the 1951 Refugee Convention was around then, that would mean that for the 4 years of that war, anyone who was displaced would now be able to go back to their country because they know the minute it finished. Now, if you come to modern day times, we have wars and emergencies and stuff like that are ongoing. Some of them will never end. So people, when they think of refugees, they think it's a temporary thing that they're taking in a person temporarily, and then whenever the war is over or whatever emergency or persecution, they go back to their own country. But nowadays that's not the case. It's permanent. Another thing that I take issue with is in the 1951 Refugee Convention, there's a part in it called Non-Refoulement, and this asserts that a refugee should not be returned to a country where they face serious threats to their life or freedom. That means that once a person comes to your territory looking for international protection, say in a situation like Syria or Afghanistan, those wars won't be over for maybe in my lifetime. So that means the sovereign state, the national government, has to take that person in and can never send them back while that war is ongoing. So that's a big problem I have as well with it. The other problem is that when somebody seeking international protection goes through the asylum process and then gets international protection from the country, they have the same rights as the citizen in the country to health services, public services, health, education, etc., and housing. Another part of there's also the 1967 protocol, and there's also another thing called the reunification program, whereby somebody who has arrived in your country, say from Syria or Afghanistan, within the year of becoming a refugee and has been given international protection, they can apply for members of their family to come over and join them. So, like, if you've, say, a chap and he or a girl and they're Irish or they're British or they're French or whatever, and the refugee comes into your country, they can call, say, the rest of their family over. So, say there's a chap already here, he calls for his wife and his 6 kids. They cannot be discriminated for social housing, for public housing. So even though you have Irish people or British people or European people who've been on housing lists who haven't been able to afford a house themselves, these people are also put on the same housing lists, but because some of them have bigger families than the people on the list, they jump the queue. And the individual governments has no say in this. They cannot discriminate against these people. So there are a few of the things I think has to be looked at. I think and the other thing is, most countries in Europe anyway cannot cope with the amount of people looking for refugee status. They cannot cope with them. There's people being stuck at borders of different countries, in camps, etc. So I think the people of the countries that signed up to that 1951 Refugee Convention should put pressure on their public representatives to say this thing isn't working. It's not fair giving false hope to the people who want to get into our countries, and also it's not fair on the people in the countries who've been waiting on waiting lists, say for health, for hip operations, etc., having to be dropped down the queue because there's more pressing cases from people coming from abroad because the refugee situation, etc. So I believe that governments should start suspending or stop being part of this convention until it's redrawn, and that there's more flexibility for the individual states to say who can and who cannot stay in the country instead of it being forced on them.